Welcome back. Still tuned in to News and Views, and in a bit we'll be diving into Malaysia's latest move to hold Israel accountable on the world stage. This is following Israel's restriction on the UNRWA's operations and the intensifying crisis in Gaza. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has declared his country will push for Israel's expulsion from the United Nations and is citing Israel's alleged war crimes and human rights abuses. Malaysia is currently working with a coalition of nations to draft a UN resolution and aims to present it at an emergency summit. This will be happening in Riyadh. And this unprecedented move is part of a growing international call for justice for Palestinians, despite the challenge of a potential US veto in the UN Security Council, something that we've gotten used to at this point. And to help us unpack all of this, we'll be joined by Dr. Roland Lowe. He's a prominent BDS activist currently in the UK, but is from Malaysia, and he'll be bringing us up to speed into the push for Palestinian solidarity in Malaysia and globally. Dr. Lowe, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time. I want to just quickly, jump on the topic at hand here. Your reaction to Malaysia's move to try and expel Israel from the UN and what the step represents for Malaysia and just the broader Palestinian solidarity that the country has.
On October the 28th, the Israeli Knesset passed a law basically banning operations of UNRWA in the occupied Palestinian territories. This includes Gaza, West Bank, and Jerusalem. So a coalition of countries called the Core Group came up with a statement basically condemning this, and they are working together to work on a resolution asking the ICJ to put before the UNGA a resolution which will ask the ICJ to issue a judgment based on Israel's obligations as a member to the UN and as a country that signed an agreement with UNRWA on what Israel's obligations are. This coalition of groups, Malaysia is part of this coalition, but Malaysia isn't the only country. Like, for example, your country, South Africa, is also in that core group. So what this will do is the ICJ will then probably make a ruling saying that Israel has to allow UNRWA to operate in the occupied Palestinian territories under international law. Then the UNGA will then probably follow, but then the core group, including Malaysia, will probably follow up with a resolution to be put before the UNGA on what is to be done if Israel does not allow UNRWA to continue to operate to help the Palestinians. So it's not just Malaysia that's doing it.
That's a very, very important point because international solidarity, I think, is one of the only few ways that we can, I don't know to what extent, try to put pressure, on the United Nations and on the US to hold the state of Israel accountable for their human rights transgressions against the people of Palestine. But when it comes to Malaysia specifically, historically, what role has Malaysia played in supporting Palestine, and how is this stance impacting on Malaysia's relationships on the global stage? Because you have other countries like the US, for instance, like Germany and France, that are very unequivocal when it comes to their support for Israel.
Historically, Malaysia has never had any relations with Israel. Like, never normalize any relations. So basically, like, for example, the Malaysian passport states that it can't be used to visit Israel. So in terms of supporting Palestinians, well, Malaysia, from the government standpoint, the government has long the Malaysian government was one of the first countries to recognize Palestine as a state. From the standpoint of NGOs, quite many NGOs basically try to collect funds to donate to Palestinians. Also, there are various initiatives to both from the standpoint of government, private universities, and also NGOs to organize scholarships for Palestinians to study in Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, I'd say that many the vast majority of Malaysians are sympathetic to the Palestinians. And then, of course, especially within the past year, because of what the crimes that Israel is committing every day, there's pretty much strong sentiment to boycott, not basically American and also Western companies that are seen to be either supporting Israel or supportive of Israel. So, for example, popular American fast food chains have faced pretty strong boycott sentiment.
Prof, one thing which is, very, very important for me is the fact that the UN Security Council's approval is, necessary to expel a member. But with the US often using its veto to protect Israel, what do you think are the challenges and possible outcomes Malaysia may face in pushing for this resolution?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's partially why I would say not to get too excited about Israel being expelled, because under Articles 5 and 6 of the UN Charter, any proposal to either suspend or expel a country's membership has to go through the UN Security Council, where, of course, the US and the UK have their vetoes. However, one proposal some people are suggesting is to follow the precedent used against apartheid South Africa, because during the apartheid era, the US and the UK also blocked any attempts to expel South Africa or suspend South Africa. So basically, what was done then was that the credentials of the South African diplomatic delegation were not recognized. So what some people are proposing now with Israel is to do the same. So Israel's the diplomatic credentials of Israel at the UN will not be recognized. And the proposal probably is that after the ICJ issues a judgment saying Israel has to allow UNRWA to continue operating, they will try a UNGA resolution to have the diplomatic credentials of the Israeli delegation at the UN not recognized. So Israel will be still a member, but it cannot participate in the UNGA assembly meetings. So it's a de facto suspension. That was done against South Africa, and it's being done against Taliban at the moment. So I think that will probably be the way forward with regards to Israel.
Would you say this move was more about making a statement rather than, realizing the outcome, which would essentially be seeing Israel being putted out of the UN?
Well, I think we got to be cognizant of how the UN functions. There is the US veto there. And unless we are all prepared to completely leave the UN and start a new organization, the veto is there. So we just have to think of ways to get around the veto. But I wouldn't say this move is useless, because the thing is, the international law works pretty. It has to go step by step by step. So everything that's such a, for example, the ICJ genocide case that South Africa has brought, I think is really important. Similarly, the case that the ICJ case also on the legality, of the lawfulness of Israeli occupation. All these are steps in building a case to make Israel a pariah state, to make them isolated globally. So it has to be done case by case, step by step.
No, definitely. And I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see the outcomes thereof. Although we know that, that a veto vote from the US will always be there. But I think it's, little, inventions like this where, countries go out into the UN and present such cases so that, we at least hope that the world does grow a bit conscious on what's currently happening in Gaza and just the role that Israel is playing in actually, perpetuating this genocide. So, we really appreciate it. And we're going to leave it here for now, Doctor. Thank you so much for your time.
We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood. The whole neighborhood is already destroyed. More than 17 towers are down. Here, as you can see, the firefighters trying their best to help. The people are still under the rubble. A lot of the people.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Sha'alan. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments. Follow Salam Media on social media pages for more on this tour and be part of a